and welcome to our webinar on the file repository, Organize, Manage, and Share with Ease, presented by Member365. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christine Bundy. I am the Director of Customer Success, and fun fact is I love questions. Questions are always good. It means we're learning. So if you have questions today, please put them into the Q&A found at the bottom of your screen. As everyone has been muted, cameras are turned off for mine. And we are recording today, so the recording will be posted on YouTube, so you can watch this again later if you like. All right, so what are we going to cover today? First off, what is a repository? How do you create a repository? What is document metadata to create? What do you need to create? How to grant access to members or specific groups? And then how do you test it and how does it work? And then how to add a document. So we will go through all those with some best practices and questions. Again, put questions into the Q&A. I will do a Q&A session at the end. If I do see it as I'm going, I will try to answer them as I go. All right, so let's jump into Member365. So everyone can see my Member365 admin dashboard. Now, one thing that I will say is that our file repository is something that needs to be enabled on your system. So if it's not currently enabled and you need it enabled, please reach out to us through the ticket system, which can be found right here on your dashboard. What the file repository does, it allows you to provide documents, strictly documents, for your members to have easy access to. So today what we're going to do is we're going to create a file repository for presentations. So for example, like these webinars. So if we wanted to create PDF versions of these webinars with the PowerPoint so people go back and look at all the best practices, they have access to them. And so we're going to do that through the file repository and have them have access in the member portal. That's one use case. You could have other use cases. You could have like newsletters, historical documents, you could have policies, you could have toolkits for your members. There's a number of ranges of use cases that you can use this for. But again, it's strictly documents. It's not videos. It's not anything along those lines. If it's videos, that's when you use the video library. So they are separate. Just something I want to point out. Doesn't mean that you can't have a PDF with a link in it, but that's not what the repository is for. That's what videos are for file library. Files are for the file repository. Just want to make that clear. All right. And then we can click the create button, how to create, or we can go to manage because I've already set one up. You could also hit create repository here. Now I'm going to go down and I've already started setting up the one for presentation. So again, we're doing a repository for all the presentations, and I'm going to throw a few of the presentations that I have downloaded from Canva that we use, the tool that we use to make our presentations for best practices to upload. Now, I'm first going to give it a name. I'm going to give it category. You can give subcategories. These are for internal use cases. And so that's up to you for managing where they fall under. You can allot time, so they only have a certain time to be able to see certain things if you want. Always keep it locked. Again, same like Forms. It has the same kind of functionality as Forms does. If you don't want to make it, you want to keep it locked. If it's unlocked, then they can remove it. So it can be deleted. Do you want to allow members? So if you have a repository that you're like, I want members to be able to share their knowledge, or if you have a historical society and you want them to share documents, this is where you would enable that feature. How do you want the information to be displayed? You can have it just in plain text. I personally like the table view. It's my favorite. Or there is an additional table view with null over values. So it's up to you. Play around with each of these views as you're going. Again, table view is my favorite, and I like to display my analytics so that people can see them. You don't have to have these features on, and you can come back and adjust them at any time. So analytics just displays for everyone in the portal what's based off of your metadata. So the questions that you're asking, which ones are being answered. Next is you're going to go over and give a little description of what the repository is for. And then when somebody submits it, especially if you're allowing your members to do it, put in a thank you message. Make sure there is a save button as dropped. I've already published, but a save button as you're going through each of these items. Document metadata. What is document metadata? This is how you upload the information into the repository and what you would filter off of. So most of the time, most associations only want to have the things that they can filter off of. You do need a file. So you need to drag down a file so they're able to upload a file, unless you're not using it for files and you're using it just for information. That's also a possibility. But I need to be able to upload the document. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to set my minimums and maximums. How many per uploads can they do? And the number one thing that's important is going to these properties, because these properties are what also are important for displaying purposes, because you want it to display in search pop-up, you want it to display in the analytics, and you want it to display in the grid and plain text. So you can hide fields that they maybe fill out in the form but don't display. I like to have everything display. Again, you can play around with what each of these are. And then if you are looking to do an API repository that does require some development work, you'd have to contact your account manager, but we do have the option available. You're going to do that with each of these questions. So I've created this to be like, okay, which coach did the presentation and what module was it for? You could add the date picker to pick a date so they know what date it was conducted on. So we can even add that one in. So we could say date completed. And I'm going to make it available for each of these and save. And so when I have everything good here, because I can filter off these, I want radio buttons, check boxes, drop downs, so I can be able to search off of these as filters. You can add like a description area. I know that some people do that and have a keyword search go through the descriptions. That's also a possibility. Number one thing is when you are doing your labeling, even for your uploads, you want to make sure that you're doing labeling that, because it's going to be visible, that is appropriate and that would make sense so people know what those files are. And I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So let's save that. And then we're going to go over to member access. And so this is who can see this information, who has access to be able to see it. So I can say all members, or I can say just specific. So if I'm testing one out, again, if you want a staff membership for testing, and this is the perfect case because I'm creating this repository, I don't want anybody to see it until I got all the information in there that I have. So I'm only going to share it with the admin staff until I have it ready to go. And then I'll come back in and say, okay, all members can have access. Great. It's only for members. They get access and can see it at any time in the member portal. You can do it based off of demographics or specific individuals if you want. But again, having all your staff being able to go in and test it with you is always great. So make sure you have that staff membership, lifetime membership. All administrators have that membership on their contact record. So when they log in, they see the portal as a member would see it. Then search results. It's what kind of order do you want to see those results in? Ascending order, descending order? Do you want to move them around? Or are they okay just the way they are? And this is just for display purposes. So if I hit publish, I've updated it. Now, how do I see it? Where do I go? How do I add files? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to the member portal. You don't actually add the files in the CRM side because it has the ability to allow members to add them as well. Because remember that option? So in here, when I go to resources, I can go to my presentations, and I can have my list and analytics. Now, as you can also see, there are other ones in here. So you can have multiple repositories at a time or just one. It's completely up to you. If you have just one, that name will appear up here at the top. So if I go to my listings, and I have one in here already. Now I added date. So it doesn't have a date because I've already been added. But I can come in and I can add a new resource. Now I can see these options because I'm an administrator. I have admin privileges. So if I granted the access for members would also be able to see this as well. So I click on add a resource. And it gives me that metadata form to fill out. So I can grab one of my PDFs And let's put in the renewal one. And I'm pretty sure I did that last presentation. And it was for memberships. And it was done last week. And we can submit it. So thank you for submission. So now when I go back into my presentation list, it's now in my listings. And I can click on it to download. So it's going to automatically provide me with my pop-up. I can download it. If you don't want the pop-up, you can remove the pop-up feature. And now I have that and can be able to reference it. So they do get the download version of it. Now I can edit this if I don't have it correctly. So if I go and click on this one, I can come in here and, oh yeah, this date was 4, and add that in. You can also, so what I said, filter features. So you can filter based off of the items. So if I just want to find all of the ones with these 2 modules, I could narrow my search. I can clear it. And so this is what the metadata and why it's important that you're going to use radio buttons, checkboxes, or drop downs for filters. If you want that information in here already, that's fine. You can do that. Again, you want to make sure that you have clearly labeled your PowerPoints, PDF, Excel documents, whatever it is that you're providing, so that they know what those files are. Or you're going to have a separate column for the name of the document as well. But you want to make it so that it's clear here as well as organized. And so that it's really concise and it's simple. Keep it simple, silly as possible when making these. So make sure you structure them out. If you're doing a bunch of toolkits for members, make sure you structure out the correct items within the correct segments that you're looking for the different repositories. If you're doing different repositories, or if you're just doing it based off of like a module or a specific kit, you could always have one with a metadata to segment those out. Like I did with all the modules within our system, you could do that as well. Okay, so we created the repository. We showed you how to add it. You can't export, by the way, results as well. So that is enabled to drop down into an Excel sheet. So just this Excel sheet into an Excel document. If I return to the CRM and I go back to repository files, I can also see my statistics. So I can go and see how many people have visited which repository. So I can click on which one I'm looking for. I can select the date range, and then I can see how many times. So I've been in there a few times today. So I've had 3 reoccurring. So one individual has been in there 3 times. Doesn't say specifically who, but it does give you a great understanding of how many people are looking and how often they're going in there. You can do that for each of those. Oh, I forgot, and I apologize. Going back to the portal, I mentioned analytics. So you don't have to have analytics in the member portal, but when you go to presentations and analytics, this just shows you what those metadata field analytics are. So how many were for me and what modules they were for. So those are the metadata analytics. So people can see if there's 3 from Carlo and 2 of them were events and 1 of them was member portal. Or maybe Remy did 1 from forms. You can see the different analytics there if you want to share that. If you don't, we want to turn that off. You simply go back to modules, file repository, manage. And when we go in, we're going to go to the analytics and turn off display analytics and save so that it's not visible in the portal to members. All right. So one other thing is file manage. So these are strictly for if you need to delete files. So you can't delete them in the member portal. Only administrators in the CRM can delete them. This was actually a special request so that even if you give someone admin access in the member portal to create the repository, they couldn't delete anything unless a CRM administrator reviewed it first, but it's simple as coming in here and clicking the delete button if you need to. And again, you also have your analytics summary, just as you saw in the member portal here as well. All right. That is the repository. So let's go do some best practices and questions. So again, if you have questions or case scenarios, I'd love to hear them. Again, I really love questions. All right. So first best practice is organize your repository strategically. As I was saying, if you're doing multiple toolkits, if you're doing presentations, but then you have lots of presentations from different events, make sure you're using that metadata correctly and make sure that you are organizing it and making it clear. Again, even the PDFs that you're uploading, you want to make sure that you're keeping them labeled correctly. And also make sure that you keep them up to date. Some things can get outdated quickly. And so you want to at least do a quarterly review to make sure there's nothing in there that needs to be changed or needs to be removed, because your policies might change annually and maybe you missed it last time. So just having a set of eyes on it on a regular basis would be beneficial too, so your members aren't getting inaccurate information. All right. And also, once you have it fully set up and you're done all your testing and then you've launched it to your members, make sure you tell them. Let them know that hey, we have there's a resource for you. Put it in your newsletter, make a badge, put it on your welcome message, mention it in any of your webinars. It's a cool feature to have to allow your members to be able to go in there and get materials that you may not have. Or if you aren't necessarily wanting to use the repository, you can still also use the workspaces. So those are both options that are available. All right. So then we have questions. And again, I love questions. All right. So can you upload more than one file? You can upload more than one file at a time. I don't recommend it because it can get messy. So if you are doing it, I recommend doing single uploads at a time. Otherwise, it's all in one big chunk and they'll all be on the same line. They won't be on separate lines. So that's a great question. But to consider is just making it one for one so that the filtering capabilities are better within your metadata in the form that you've created. All right. If there aren't any other questions, is there restrictions to the files or types? So they have to be a PDF, PowerPoint, Word document, Excel. So Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, Word. I believe notes, like the text one, is also available, but they need to actually be like a document, not a video. So videos could be when you are using the video library, and then file repository is just strictly for files, like you would on your desktop. For the style, there isn't a style file, so you do have a restriction on your account, although I've never seen anyone go over it for your entire database, but there's no limit on the size of file. Can you give an example of how to use how these are used? So how I just explained one is for presentations. So you could be a conference presentations. So all of your conference speakers gave you presentations and then you put them into a repository for your 2025 conference. Another use case I see is people having toolkits. So for new members, they might have toolkits for them where they provide them with all the policies, where they give them a document for benefits, because it's not the type of benefits that would go in our benefit module. It might be just information of all the benefits that they gain with the association. There could be repositories that you have for your history. So the history of your association, or a repository for historical documentation that needs to be made public. There's few use cases that way. I have one association that has articles. They have like thousands of articles. And so they have an article database. Again, it's not necessarily used by everybody, but those are a couple of use cases for you. I hope those helped. All right. If you have any further questions, you are more than welcome to reach out to us. You can get us on chat if it's enabled in your system. You can also reach out to us via ticket and be more than happy to answer your questions. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.